Let's make a hand-drawn 2.5D environment in Godot. We'll do this primarily by instantiating 2D sprites that render at 3D locations in our scene. First, for inspiration, I like to find a color palette that catches my eye. I'll be using this one called Lost Century from lowspec.com. I'll import this into my drawing software on a large 1920 by 1080 canvas to start, and I'll expand my canvas size as needed. I'm using Clip Studio to draw my sprites, but you can just as effectively use a free alternative like Godot. On a separate background layer, I'll fill the canvas with this blue color that I intend to use as the sky color. For a simple pond scene, I'll draw some trees, other foliage, rocks, a pond, and some waves. On a separate layer under the line art, I'll start filling in the colors. I'll put this brown color that I intend to use for my ground color on the reference layer so that I can get some idea on how the colors will work together in the full scene. To get a single PNG export for each sprite, I'm going to put just my line art and colors in a folder together, and I'll copy and paste selections from this folder to a separate canvas. I'll crop the canvas around the selection and then export it as a PNG. If I keep the layers unmerged in my main project file, it'll be easier for me to maintain changes in the future if I need to. Now it's time to open a new project in Godot. I'll create a new Node3D and call it main. In my file system, I always create a folder called assets, and under it I'll create a folder called sprites, where I'll import all of the PNGs I made earlier. Under the main scene, I'll add a mesh instance 3D and give it a plane mesh with large dimensions. I'll give it a new standard material and make it unshaded. I'll change the albedo color to the ground color by copying and pasting the hex code from the palette. Under the main scene, I'll also create a world environment with a custom color set as the blue color from my palette. I'll add a node 3D and call it tree, and under that I'll add a sprite 3D. I'll drag and drop my tree PNG onto the texture field, and under flags, I'll set the billboard to Y billboard. I'll save the tree as its own scene and parent it to a node 3D called trees for organization. I'll start duplicating the trees and moving them around in the scene. This process can be tedious, but it's definitely doable when making smaller environments. I was noticing some white lines appearing on the tops and bottoms of some of my sprites. To get rid of them, I switched the texture filtering option under the sprite flags from linear bitmap to nearest bitmap. I'm going to follow a very similar process for the grasses and other foliage sprites. Because the pond is wide and flat, I'll be using a mesh instance 3D to display the texture. I'll pull it up vertically just a bit so it's above the ground, and I'll set the size to something appropriate. I'll create a new standard material, set shading to unshaded, drag the PNG into the albedo's texture field, set transparency to alpha scissor, and under sampling, setting the filter to linear bitmap anisotropic. For the rocks, I'm setting the billboard to enabled instead of Y billboard, since vertical orientation is not as important. For the lily pads, I'm using a similar technique to the pond, but I'm instead using linear filtering under the texture's sampling settings. Finally, I'll add some fog for an atmospheric look in the world environment. I'm going to use the same fog color as my sky color. To get a better look at the environment, I'm going to install a free add-on called Free Look Camera from the asset library. I'll drag the Free Look Camera script onto my camera and run the game. I think the fog washes out some of the colors, so in the world environment adjustments, I'm going to add a bit of brightness and saturation to finish it off. To make the environment more fun to navigate, I'll add a first-person controller from a previous project, and I'll add some simple collisions so the player doesn't fall into the void. There's a lot more we could do with this environment, but this is a great place to start. Not many workflows are this effective at quickly creating visually interesting environments. My assets were hand-drawn using a graphics tablet, but you can easily substitute this style with pixel art, vector art, or even edited photographs. As long as you can make 2D images, you can instance them in a 3D environment and create a unique art style for your next game. If you enjoy creating things too, feel free to join my Discord server where people are making and sharing projects all the time. Creativity loves company and like-minded individuals. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.